What's good, fam? Welcome back to the channel. This is Constant Sports. I'm your host, Constance. Now, NCAA women's basketball top 25 for week 17 just came out, and we're going to talk about some of the movement. There was a lot of movement this week. Last week, there was a lot of up and downs, especially between like the top seven teams. A lot of top seven teams took some losses this week. Some of them took more than one, right? So we're gonna get into some of the movements that's been going on in the top 25. So let's do it. All right. Texas is now sitting at the number 3 position, right? They came up 2 spots. This is the highest Texas has been since 2022. Um, a lot of people didn't think they would be this high after they lost their star point guard, but they have bounced back and they've been playing amazing team basketball. Um, so I definitely see them finishing out in possibly the top 5, depending on their next few games to come, which I don't believe they have that many games left. Let's see. They have Oklahoma and BYU left on their schedule. Oklahoma is obviously a ranked team sitting at number 20. So we will see how Texas plays against Oklahoma um, and see if they can keep that number 3 position or possibly at the lowest go to the number 5. Next, we got Stanford. They dropped one position down to the number 4. Stanford's still good. Can't really count them out with their coach and Cameron Brink. They are still a dangerous team and they're going to keep winning. Um, so I'm not really worried about them. Virginia Tech rose 3 positions to the number five position. They've been playing really well. Uh, with they have with Keatley and Amore, they're a solid duo, right? And we already know that Virginia Tech last year was a very good team. Obviously, this year they had some things they had to fix with players that left. So I think they have finally figured it out. Obviously, they only lost 4 games this season, so it's not like it took them a long time to figure it out. I think it was the fact that how often they lost in the beginning of the season. They kind of had people a little like, what's going on with them? But they've definitely bounced back, and it shows as they are sitting at the number 5 position. Iowa dropped 2 positions. They're now sitting at number 6, which I'm okay with this. In my opinion, I would have dropped them further down just because I feel like the voters are looking at Caitlin Clark and not their team. And the issue in the games that they've lost recently wasn't Caitlin Clark, it was the team. The fact that Caitlin Clark hasn't scored 40 points is the reason why they lost those games. One of the games she only scored 24 points, which I don't even know the last time she scored that little points, you know? And when you hear 24 points, you're like, that's a lot. But for Caitlin in Iowa, they need her to score more. So we'll see how the rest of their season goes. Um, they obviously have a couple more games to play. They play Minnesota, and then their final game of the season, they go up against Ohio State, who we all know is still the number 2 team in the country. Um, if Iowa does not beat Ohio State, it would definitely drop them significantly. They are currently sit as the number 3 team in their conference. Um, so I know there was a thing saying how Iowa could possibly be a number 1 seed, which I don't understand that. I probably need to read up more on who gets the number 1 seeds. But if you're the 3rd best team in your conference, you should not be a number 1 seed. But like I said, I'm not voting. I obviously need to read more into how all of that comes together, which I definitely will. Um, 8, 9, and 10 is UCLA, LSU, and UConn, right? LSU and UConn made their way back up into the top 10 with UCLA coming in at number 8. They moved up 8 positions or 4 positions. And we all know UCLA is a very good team with Betts in the post and Rice at the point guard. They're very they play very well together, and their team, the whole team contributes. So I think that's the most dangerous when it comes to when you have a team where everyone contributes, they're the most dangerous teams, right? It's just like South Carolina. Everyone contributes on that team, right? Ohio State. Yes, they have like an amazing player who's only a sophomore, but that whole team, who's ever on the floor, they produce it, right? We know LSU, who's ever on the floor, they're producing. Their starting five is all averaging double digits. You have Poa coming off the bench who is now starting to put up double digits every single game. So you have 5 to 10 players every game scoring in double digits. Those are hard teams to beat because it doesn't matter who has an off game if everyone else is still contributing, right? So LSU is now sitting at number 9. Obviously, they came up 4 positions. It took the committee a while to move them up. Um, I don't know. They had to win 4 or 5 straight for them to move them up a position. But yeah, as we know, LSU just played Tennessee last night, and I watched the game, and it was a rough game to watch. When you're looking at the game, it seemed like there was a lot of fouls called, but then when you look at the stats, they were what and what. Same amount of fouls called on each team. So roughly the same amount of free throws shot for both teams. The shooting percentage for that game was horrible. I think that was the worst part of the game was the shooting percentage for both teams. And Angel Reese didn't really score until roughly the second quarter. She didn't really start scoring in the game until the fourth quarter. Um, but that but Haley Van Lith really showed up and showed out during that game. And it was great to see. It was great to see her looking like the old Haley Van Lith, and she's starting to have more and more fun. Michaela Williams is starting to get her confidence back, um, and so Morrow, I think she's on like a little slump right now, but I just think it's they played 3 games in a week. A lot can happen. Fatigue is happening, so they just have to keep pushing it. Um, UConn made their way back into the top 10. Obviously, they're sitting at number 10. UConn will always be, they'll always be a threat to people, or they'll always seem like a threat to people because they're a very well coached team. They're a very poised team, and they're a group of girls who know how to play basketball. Um, Obviously, their conference isn't that strong, so them being undefeated in their conference is something that's just going to happen. So we'll continue to watch for them and see how the rest of their season goes for them. Um, Oregon State dropped 2 positions. They're sitting at number 11. I still think Oregon State is a sleeper, even though they're ranked high in the rankings. But I think they're a sleeper because I think people still sleep on them, and that's how they've gotten so many big wins. NC State dropped 6 positions. They took a big loss last night. They lost to Duke. They lost to Duke. They lost to North Carolina. Back-to-back losses against 2 unranked teams is not good. And yes, we know Duke is a good team. North Carolina is a good team. We know that. But when you lose to 2 unranked teams back-to-back, the committee might have something to say about that. NC State is still a good team. I don't think that this really affects them. Obviously, it'll affect them when it comes to what they go into March with, what seed they go into March with. But I do see them making it past the first couple of rounds for sure. Colorado dropped 2 positions. They're now sitting at 13. Colorado has kind of hit a little slump. I'm not quite sure what it is. I don't know if they're running into some teams that are starting to find themselves. Obviously, early in the season, all teams are starting to figure out their chemistry and their grooves. And I think that's where Colorado had a lot of their success. But with them losing to USC, Utah, and they lost to Oregon State, they lost 3 games in a row. Yeah. If the committee don't like 2 in a row. They definitely don't like 3 in a row. Even if the teams that you lost to are ranked, none of those 3 teams that they played was ranked higher than them. At one point, Oregon State was 17, Colorado was number 4, Utah was 22 when Colorado was 8, and then USC was 7 with Colorado being 11. And I do think USC they obviously stayed at the number 7 position, no movement, but I do see them moving. I don't think the committee will have enough reasonings to keep them that high if they lose another game. They're currently sitting at 21-5, so they haven't played as many games as everyone else. So if they lose another game, the committee has to drop them. Their next 2 games is against 2 unranked opponents, Arizona and Arizona State. So they should win those games. But like I said, you never know, especially at the end of the season. These teams are coming out and they're having fun and they're balling, and that's what you like to see. You know, you got those people who want to ruin someone's day, and that's what's happening. Who else moved? Let's see. Kansas State dropped 5 positions. You know, Kansas State is also a dangerous team. Obviously, Lee in and out of the lineup with the health issues is going to be rough on a team that's centered around her. I do believe that Kansas State is one of those teams that are centered around one player. They're not as dominant on her because they have won games without her in the lineup and with her in the lineup. So I'm not worried about Kansas State at all, and I hope anyone who plays them, especially once we get into March, who plays them, I hope they are worried about them and not think that, oh, our rank is our position and our wins and losses are more than them, because that means absolutely nothing if Lee is fully healthy. Towards the bottom of the top 25, I would say from 19 to 25, it's a lot of up and downs. Princeton was pushed out of the top 25. They lost the game. West Virginia is now sitting number 25. They went down a couple positions. They took a couple of tough losses. UNLV came up 2 positions. They're sitting number 24. And UNLV is 24-2. Obviously, they have a very good record, but it's also depending on who they've been playing. So I want to see if once they will make it to March Madness, they probably will get their ticket punched. So I want to see when they play people who have a little bit more fight in them and see how they go up against them. Baylor came up 3 positions. They're sitting at number 21. But we already know what Baylor's issues are. They're just a small team. And once they get into March, they're going to meet teams that have post players, right? Majority of the teams have post players. And this is the season for the big girls, okay? The post players are playing amazing, amazing basketball. To me, post players are taking over the league right now. And I'm here for it. Their guards are feeding them the ball. And the best thing about these post players is they're getting better at passing, which is good because we all know in that next level in the WBA, passing is everything, right? If you're a good player, they're going to double you on the post, which means someone's open. So learning out how to pop that ball out to your guards and the guards hitting those shots, that's what I'm starting to see, and I'm really liking it. So that's a lot of the big moves in the top 25 for week 17. We're going to keep going. A couple more games left for the regular season. Some teams only have 1 game, right? But majority of them have 2. So we'll see how this ends, and we'll see who gets what seed and how this thing will start to happen in March, because it's about to get exciting. Continue to support these women playing the game that we love. Continue to support me. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace, love, happiness.